Patriotism from a Danish point of view. I was born in Denmark. I have my home there. I have my roots there. From there my world goes. In these few lines by the Danish fairy tale teller Hans Christian Andersen describes the precondition for my life that I'm a Dane. Being Danish is similar to a number of other preconditions that are also innate without our Lord having asked me first in a democratic way. For instance, my gender, that I have exactly my parents and siblings, my abilities or lack thereof, my appearance, race, and so on. I relate to these preconditions, but I cannot change them. They are not constructions, but reality. Relating to one's preconditions is in fact an important part of becoming oneself whom I am. Some find it necessary to break all ties with one's parents in order to become completely oneself. Others love them all their lives, but no matter what, my parents are still my parents. The same with me being Danish. Some people love Denmark, some find the national in conflict with modern principles and fight it, and others never think about it. But no matter what, we are Danish and cannot escape it. When people who went to the United States at the age of 18 become senile, they start speaking Danish. It is that deep. What it means to be Danish is different for each individual. It cannot be described completely, but that does not mean that we cannot say anything about it. Being a people is a series of common factors that bind us together: language, history, form of government, our own nation, state or lack thereof, race, religion, culture, professional conditions, nature, and so on. In each individual people, these factors do not count in the same proportion, but their interaction is what constitutes the glue of the people and determines how strong it is. In Denmark, many of these factors that form the framework of a people are present to a great extent. One of these factors is our religion. Admittedly, not all Danes are Christians, but we are cultural Christians. Our view of humanity is Christian, and since Christian morality cannot be put into paragraphs, we separate practical politics and religious faith. Even though Christianity as a faith is intolerant, and it is, after all, when it claims to be the truth with a capital T. It is liberal. It does not force anyone. This liberality should characterize us. Liberality does not equal tolerance. Tolerance has the idea that one thing is just as good as the other. Denmark or Holland, Christian or Muslim, it is all the same. The tolerant person is often tolerant of everyone except those who hold something to be true. The tolerant person finds it easy to be offensive, to stand firm on our own values. The values that we as liberals, as lovers of freedom, must stand firm on are the fruits that Christianity has helped to establish among us: popular government, freedoms of expression, freedom of religion, and so on. The Danish constitution is a document that describes these common values in clear Danish, and the constitution means that this is not everything we can be tolerant of. We must make that clear. However, there is a question that arises when we talk about cultural Christianity as a common value. Can we continue to pick the fruits of Christianity if we only want the shell and throw away the kernel? If we do this with real nuts, the shells will be gone the last nut tree winters. Can Christian values exist without Christianity? That's the question. If we let Christianity itself answer, we know that only when God gives us faith, we do get the fruits of faith. Christianity also puts the national feelings in its rightful place. God is not only our God in Denmark, but the God of all people. As Christians, we are each faithful to the condition that God gives us. I love my children, my parents, my girlfriend, my friends, my country. But I can recognize other people's love for their country and their family in my own. As Christians, we also know that we are not perfect and that Denmark is not perfect. Yet we have a special relationship with Denmark while respecting and understanding that as we feel, others feel too. Our special relationship with Denmark is like a family bond. We must not only carry every glory, but also every stain that falls on Denmark's honor. Being a nationalist is the exact opposite of being national, namely believing that my country is better than others. If we are national and not nationalist, we will protect other people's right to freedom, just as someone who loves their home will protect the right of others to furnish their own home. Despite the similarity in wording, being national and being a nationalist are direct opposites. A particularly happy factor in Denmark is that people and state almost coincide, except from the Danish minority in South Schleswig in Germany. A look out over the world is enough to convince us that where this is not the case, war and misery follow. A people without their own nation is in fact not a complete people, like a fisherman without a boat is not a complete fisherman. That people and country coincide also means that being Danish is nothing one needs to think about on a daily basis. It is a healthy framework for the national feelings. Just like the health, when I'm healthy, I think about everything possible that has nothing to do with my health, and when I get sick, I only think about it. And yet, I think about my health even when I'm well. I eat and drink, dress according to the weather, and so on, all these daily habits. In the same way with the Danish, I think about it all the time without thinking that I am thinking about it. Yes, every single time I speak. Danish is a framework that we find ourselves in like fish in water. Just as the fish does not worry about the water until it lies and gasps on dry land, so does we not think about the national as long as Denmark is free. Thus, the national is given a withdrawn role as the obvious framework in which our lives unfolds. We can compare it to the relationship with the home. As a school principal for a private boarding school for teenagers, I have seen how young people react when the home fails, for instance if their parents are divorcing. The home, which the teens in a boarding school usually do not talk much about, suddenly fills everything when there are big problems. Something similar happens when the state fails that Denmark is our home. Then what should be a matter of course for the government becomes something that takes up far too much. What is the natural responsibility of the states becomes a private matter. That can lead to self-defense nationalism. National politicans, that is the secret if we want to avoid nationalism. If national leadership is lacking, we have a crisis. We saw that during the Nazi occupation. Something similar was experienced by the Danish in southern Jutland under German rules from 1864 to 1920. From this we can see how this kind of thing progresses. The people are under pressure. It costs something to want to be Danish. We are divided into three camps: a Pharisaic party, which put convenience and adoption above the fatherland, a big group trying to live with the pressure of times without taking a clear stand, and a resistance party, in which the national in the heat of the self-defense struggle takes on a nationalistic tone. Being Danish becomes a special achievement that only the strong can deliver. The little man's little Danishness is ruined, just as my little fate is ruined if the Danish church becomes for a circle of special Christians. In both of the cases mentioned, the occupation and the Danes in Germany, in northern Germany, the unfought situation arose because of German military aggression. Could something similar happen today when we are also under pressure from strong forces? Forces that want our borders erased, all borders erased, so that the earth becomes a big, great porridge, a paradise for the multinationals and the strong and the biggest. In any case, we see that many are against any form of patriotism and call all talk about Denmark for nationalism and old-fashioned romance. Those who say this create a defense-oriented Danishness where nationalism sticks its head out, of course. It sounds so paradisiacal with the borderless world, but as Christians we know that people are not angels. That is why we need borders, both literally and figuratively. Peace arises when there is nothing to fight about, and there is less to fight about where there are borders in which we leave each other alone. This applies on all levels, from the right of the homes to countries to organize themselves as they please. Therefore, national self-determination can conflict with human rights if it goes too far. Although there is much good to be said about human rights, conflict can arise between them and the national state if they are extended to be against any discrimination based on nationality. They are a bump under the national state, which is founded exactly on discrimination based on nationality. Or, to put it in another way, it could also be a human right that in the Netherlands the Dutch decide and in Denmark the Danes decide. That's how it is. Extreme human rights can destroy the right of peoples to self-determination. Denmark's self-determination is precisely the basis for us to make a number of national trade-offs in politics, for example, whether we should enter into an alliance for security reasons, what kind of immigration we can handle, and so on. In short, what we have to sacrifice to live together with other countries. We can disagree about these trade-offs of the national against other considerations without being any more or less Danish for that reason. Anyone who believes that it must cost money to take special consideration, for example, to Danish industry, is not therefore a nationalist, and everyone who believes that we should give up some freedom to the European Union is not therefore a traitor. But behind it all lies the clear premise that Denmark remains a free country, which make its own decisions when we have to weigh up what we are willing to sacrifice to cooperate with the other countries. In other words, words, that we decide for ourselves where we want to pay the price for doing as we want. Independence is not independence completely, but it is the freedom to choose independence or to choose dependence. In the Bible we can read about what it leads to if we, like Esau, sell our birthright to Denmark for a bowl of lentils. All in all, there is good reason for us to reflect on the national, even though it has not been in good taste to talk about it for a number of years. Good reason why I do not think about how I can exploit and abuse society, but about how I can benefit Denmark. To obey the commandment to love one's neighbor, including one's country, is to assume responsibility. This very responsibility is characteristic of a human being who does not want to be just a biological organism, an animal that lives for its own sake. And I have to say that some of these thoughts I have expressed here is inspired by the late Danish priest or pastor Jørgen Nielsen. He was a Danish priest in Slesvig, Germany, where there is a Danish minority. And I will say thank you if you listened until here. Yours sincerely, Thorkil Sohn, Bilsvej 26, 69550, that's the postal code. Ringkøbing, that's the town, Denmark. Thank you. And now I'll try to shut off the camera.